There's nothing quite like a fire on a cold night, is there? The way it dances and crackles, the way it pushes back the dark and makes even frightening stories feel safer so long as the flame is between you and the shadows. But fire was not always ours. Tonight's tale is about the greatest theft the world has ever seen, and the first punishment meant to last forever. Zeus and his siblings ruled from high Olympus now, and for the first time in a very long while, creation felt quiet, ordered, as though someone had finally shut a door that had been banging in the wind since the beginning. But a throne is easy to win and hard to keep, especially when you are a new king and everyone is watching to see what your rule will mean. And the truth is, the gods did not simply inherit a world, they inherited mortals. Small, soft creatures walking upright beneath that enormous sky, creatures with hungry bellies and thin skins, creatures who shivered through cold nights and feared the dark the way a rabbit fears the shadow of a hawk. They had hands, yes, curious hands, clever hands, but without the right gift, hands are only hands. Some stories say Prometheus shaped the first humans from clay and water, pressing faces into mud like a sculptor who could not help himself. Others say humanity was already here, and Prometheus simply noticed them in a way no one else ever had. Either way, he became the one who cared, and that made him dangerous. Prometheus was Titan-born, old blood and old power, but he had chosen his side carefully when the Great War came. While others clung to Kronos out of habit or fear, Prometheus watched the world turning and understood where it was headed. They called him the forethinker because he could see the next move before anyone else even knew a game had begun. He could look at the present and already feel the future tightening around it like a knot. He stood at the edge of the new age and looked down at humanity, their scraped knees, their raw meat, their cold caves, and something in him twisted. Maybe it was pity, maybe it was pride, maybe it was love. Whatever it was, it drew him into the space between gods and mortals, and that space is where many tragedies begin. The trouble, as trouble often does, began with a feast. Zeus called for a gathering at a place called Mecone, where gods and mortals would establish how this relationship would work. What did humans owe the immortals? What would the immortals allow humans to keep? The first sacrifice would set the pattern for every offering, every altar, every prayer that rose with smoke into the sky. Prometheus offered to divide the sacrifice. A great ox lay slaughtered, and every eye followed the Titan's hands as he worked. He split the animal into two portions, but made each one appear to be the opposite of what it truly was. In the first pile, he placed the good meat, the rich parts, the nourishing parts, the parts a hungry family would need to survive. Then he hid all of it beneath the ugly stomach lining, so it looked dull and worthless. In the second pile, he arranged the bones, clean and gleaming, and covered them in a thick layer of shining fat. It looked abundant, luxurious, like the better choice if your eyes were greedy. Then Prometheus stepped back and invited Zeus to choose. Some say Zeus saw through the trick at once. Others insist the deception was perfect. But what matters is this. In front of gods and mortals alike, Zeus reached for the pile that looked richer, fat, over bone. And the moment he did, the world tilted. Because whether Zeus had been fooled or whether he had chosen to preserve his pride, the result was the same. Humans would keep the meat, and the gods would receive bones and fat burned on the altar, smoke curling upward like a bargain fixed into ritual. Prometheus had shifted the balance, if only by a little, and Zeus did not enjoy being shifted. He did not explode in rage, not immediately. He did not hurl Prometheus from the mountain or crush mortals where they stood. Zeus was learning how to rule, and the most frightening rulers are not the ones who shout. They are the ones who decide. His revenge was cold, deliberate, and perfectly aimed. He took fire away, not only the flame itself, but everything the flame makes possible: warmth, light, cooked food, hardened clay, softened metal, the ability to turn night into useful time instead of something to endure. Without fire, humanity was dragged backward into the dark. Imagine it. The sun goes down and everything ends. No bright center, no ring of safety, only cold, the kind that settles into your fingers and will not leave. Hunger that never quite eases, eyes in the brush that see better than yours, winter nights that feel endless. Zeus had drawn a line. The gods rule and mortals remained small. For a moment, that line held. But Prometheus had already chosen his side. If the king of the gods would not give fire, then fire would be taken. Some stories say Prometheus climbed into the heavens and stole flame from Zeus himself. Others say he snatched it from the blazing chariot of the sun. But the version that feels truest, because it sounds like something a clever titan would do, says he went instead to the divine forge, where heat never dies and sparks are born like thoughts. He watched, he waited, and when the moment came, he moved, not with strength, but with timing. He stole the flame and hid it inside a hollow fennel stalk, something plain, something ordinary, something no god would bother to inspect. That is what makes the moment so perfect. The greatest theft in the world, hidden inside a dry stem. Not in gold, not in jewels, not in a vessel fit for the gods, in something simple enough to escape notice. And when Prometheus carried it down into the human world and placed it in mortal hands, the whole future changed. At first, it was only warmth, only relief. Hands held out into orange light, faces softening as the cold retreated. Then came cooked meat, safer, richer, easier to live on. Then hardened clay, then pots that held water, then metal softened and shaped, then tools that made skill matter. After that, nothing could ever truly go back. Fire did not merely make humans comfortable, it made them capable. It stretched their days, sharpened their minds, gave their clever hands something worthy to do. It pushed back the limits that had kept them meek and frightened. It made them dangerous. And Zeus understood at once what Prometheus had really stolen: not a flame, a future. Because once mortals have fire, they begin to build. And once they begin to build, they begin to ask questions. And once they ask questions, they begin to look upward and wonder about borders, about laws, about kings. Zeus could tolerate many things, but he would not tolerate a world where defiance looked easy. So the new order invented something it had never needed before: punishment as a monument, suffering as a lesson carved into the world. Prometheus was seized and dragged to a remote peak in the Caucasus Mountains, so far and so high that even prayer would struggle to reach him there. Chains were forged that could hold Titan flesh. He was bound to living rock, arms spread wide, unable to turn away from the sky he had defied. And then Zeus sent the eagle, not some harmless bird drifting lazily over valleys, a creature of divine purpose. Beak like a blade, talons like hooks. Each day it came and tore Prometheus open and devoured his liver, while the Titan screamed against stone that did not soften and chains that did not break. And each night, because Prometheus was immortal, his body healed, whole again by dawn, ready again. So the next day the eagle returned, and the same agony began again. Day after day, year after year, not a punishment you survive and leave behind, but one you wake up to forever. That was Zeus's message. The old world may have been chaos. The new world would be rule, hard edges, clear lines, consequences that did not blink. And yet, Prometheus did not regret it. Because while he hung there, and while the eagle returned somewhere far below, humans sat around their fires. They cooked, they shaped tools, they pushed light into the dark and refused to surrender it. Every spark was proof. Every flame was a quiet victory. And Zeus, for all his power, could not undo what had been done. He could not unteach fire. He could not pull the future back into divine hands. He could only respond. Punishing Prometheus was satisfying, perhaps, but it did not solve the larger problem. Humans still had the flame. Humans still had that growing ability to shape their own lives. And if one Titan's compassion could do this much, what might mortals become as the years rolled forward? So Zeus began to consider a different kind of answer. Not chains, not an eagle, something subtler, a gift that would look beautiful, a blessing that would be welcomed, something that would enter human life the way fire had entered it. Only this time, it would change the world in a direction Zeus could live with. A creation so carefully made that no mortal could resist it, and so dangerous that once it arrived, nothing would ever be simple again. But that is a tale for tomorrow night, because next comes a gift wrapped like kindness, and the first great human tragedy, opened by curious hands and made permanent in the world.